Hey everybody, welcome to another installment of Pages Promotions, the virtual summer book festival that we're featuring on Facebook and YouTube. We're really super happy to have you. This is a really fun thing we're doing. I'm having a blast. I hope everybody else is having a good time. Today is an odd thing, for me at least. I'm not going to be moderating today because it's my birthday and it's kind of strange. So we're going to let Andy wave, say hi.
Hello.
That's Andy. Andy Lockwood is dear friend and super amazing horror author, and he's going to be moderating today so that, yeah, because, you know, he likes putting me in the hot seat. So there you go. Andy, it is all yours. Take it away, dude.
All right. So, you know, the first thing I'm going to do is, well, first I'm going to thank everybody for coming, because this is awesome, and this is a celebration of Diana, who has, I mean, everybody's very aware of the work that she has been doing in June, and I mean, for years now, you have been doing all of this for local indie Michigan authors, and like, you are just prolific at this stuff, and like, you deserve, you know, at least, what, an hour, you know, of us, you know, talking about you and making this about you for once, since,
Well,
you know,
thank you. I appreciate that.
us.
It's a weird thing for me to be on the receiving end of happiness, but I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, you deserve it. Yeah, so I'm going to throw out a little bit, and then once we get started, anybody who wants to chime in and say anything, comment, question, we are going to do this just like any other show that we've been doing. But I wanted to start off with one question that I think everybody who knows Diana wants to really kind of get an answer to. Diana, you are an author, editor, promoter, networker, event organizer, bookstore owner, talk show personality, television producer, curriculum designer and developer, indie author advocate, and otherwise all-around champion of the written word. And that's just what you do for the written word. Is there any stopping you?
Well, I'm sure today is 56 trips around the sun for me. So I'm sure at some point I'm going to get to a place where I can't do this in public anymore, and I'm just going to sit like an old crone behind my old Underwood typewriter and bang out novels. But until I get to that point, and I don't feel like I'm close to that point yet. I still feel like I have so much energy for the written word. After raising my son, and he's 30 now, and then moving into all these other facets of the written word, I keep telling my husband that what I just want to do is sell one really profitable book so he can retire and I can just focus on this for the rest of my existence. So that's the goal. And if I can support some indie authors along the way, that's all icing for me. That's actually the more fun part for me, is supporting others and watching them succeed rather than selling books. I mean, I'm just, Kate will tell you, she's chastised me often about I'm not doing enough to watch my own numbers. And it's because the writing is for me, and what I do in promotion for other people is the part where I really find the true joy for it. So yeah, I don't see myself ending anytime soon.
Good.
And we appreciate it.
Agreed. Thanks.
Absolutely. What is there anything in that long list that is missing? Is there anything that you're looking at on the horizon that you haven't done yet, that you're, other than, you know, like the New York Times bestseller that you can retire on?
Wow. I guess the thing that I haven't done yet that I would love to do is create a community. I used to do theater. For 15 years, I was a professional lighting designer, stage designer for local and regional repertory theater. I did theater here in Michigan for 15 years, and then I did a summer in Boston, and I did two summers in Boston, one summer in Seattle. What I'd really like to do is encourage authors, indie authors especially, and I'm starting to do that with a TV show, is to bring their work to the stage. because so many authors don't recognize that it's not just small screen that will benefit your book. There's some great adaptations of books. We took an adaptation of Mark Twain's life and put it on the stage with 150 7 through 17-year-old young actors, and we created a stage play musical out of it, and it was so much fun. And we reached a huge audience, and they went out and bought Mark Twain's book. So I'd like to be able to bridge that gap at some point. We're taking baby steps with it with the TV program. We're producing a one-act performance of Drayton Allen's book, Custodians of the Cosmos. We're doing a one-act. We were just in the beginning stages of production when the virus hit and we had to shut down. So hopefully this fall we'll be able to get back and finish that. But that's the one thing that I'm not doing now that I really want to do, is to bring it to the stage so that people can not only lose themselves in the theater, which I love, but also discover new books in a way that maybe they hadn't thought of before.
That's awesome. I know you mentioned that a while ago. You had a contest to decide who was going to be that, right?
Right. Yeah, we did.
And I remember that being a brand new platform that I hadn't even thought of before.
Yeah.
So it's just.
Yeah, and after announcing the contest winner and Drayton Allen being the winner, after announcing that, I got a call from an author, Colleen Nye, who is just releasing a new book. And she said, hey, can you take my book and we can do like an 8-part mini series on television? And I went, oh, yes, let's do that. Yes, let's do that. So I think television is going to be the next segue to bring books to readers in a different environment, just because it's what so many people are used to, especially now in the age of streaming everything. But I'd like to see it happen on the live stage.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to you getting back into the studio so we can see that.
Yeah, me too. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
So does anyone have any questions?
I just let Gene Davison into the room, so. Yeah, any questions, feel free, this is all about, Andy, you do this.
Okay, so how did you make the transition from the stage to writing?
It was actually the opposite. I've been writing since I was about 7. I remember the first story I ever wrote was a little short story. I was 7 years old, first or second grade, I guess. And it was an assignment for school, and we had just read The Musicians of Bremen. And the teacher said, okay, I want you to take that as inspiration and write your own story. So I wrote a story, no surprise here. It was a story about a duck and a fox and a bear, and they were in a jazz trio, and they were walking through the woods, sharing music with all the tiny woodland creatures. It's this wacky little thing. I still have it tucked away. I don't know if I'm ever going to turn it into a real thing, but that was the first thing I ever wrote, and that was at 7. And then in high school, I got seriously involved in theater. And then I continued writing. I never stopped writing. And my writing never took a hiatus. I just got completely intoxicated with theater, and I was doing that, along with the writing. So it wasn't actually theater first, writing later. It was writing first. I spent some time at the Jewish News as a feature reporter. And so there's a whole bunch of different styles of writing that I've done, but I've always written.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to point that out, is that you do not only different styles, different genres. You've worked in nonfiction. You are about to start working in education again.
Yeah. It's a little nutty. So whenever anybody says to me, what's your favorite genre? What genre do you write in? And I have to kind of stumble over myself and say, well, let me see if I can explain this. There's 35 major genres now recognized. There's probably somewhere between 100 and 250 subgenres within those 35 majors. And I have this wacky notion that I want to write one book in each of them. Because I don't have a favorite. I love to read. I love to read everything. And every time I discover a new author, I get exposed to a new genre that I didn't think of before. And like with you, Andy, I didn't, I read Stephen King, I read Dean Koontz. I was not a huge fan of the whole horror weirdness thing. And then I read you and I went, well, wait, there's another way I can enjoy horror. So, and then I read Peggy Christie, and then I read Gene Davis, and then I read Jacob Bullen, and I went, oh my God, there are all these other things happening in genres that I had never really immersed myself in. So at this stage of my life, everything I read is like opening up to a new thing. So I can't really pick a favorite. Having said that, I am finding myself starting to duplicate a little bit. For instance, I'm just going to grab these.
Do it.
Okay, so The Griffin of Greed is my children's fairy tale, and it's got a social thing attached to it because it teaches the importance of community service and forgiveness rather than collecting stuff, which I wrote it a few years ago, and I thought that was an important message for little kids. It's written through like 2nd through 5th grade readers. This summer, my husband and I are collaborating on a new children's book, which I'm super excited about. And this is a story about elephants, and it teaches very young children, like pre-readers through like 2nd or 3rd grade. It gently introduces them to what it means to have a loss of a grandparent in their lives. And I tell the story with elephants. It's really super sweet, and I just love it. And I was stuck on a little piece of it, and then we had Jacob Bulling into the TV studio, and his daughter Ashlyn came in, and she completely opened up my imagination to where the block was in that story. So she inspired me to finish it, and now my husband Dave is doing the illustration for it. So I'm super excited. That's going to come out end of this summer. I'm hoping to have it out by August.
Now, this is the first time you and Dave have collaborated, right?
Yes. Yeah. When Dave and I first met, we decided early in our relationship that collaborating and writing wouldn't necessarily benefit either of us because he's a technical writer. He approaches things from a different direction than I do. And he's tremendously supportive. He's probably one of my best cheerleaders. But we never worked on a project together. And when I brought this to him and I said, I need an artist, and I love your art. He's an amazing, amazing artist, and I love it. And he said, well, I'll take a stab at it and we'll see. And he produced the first couple of pictures, and I was just over the moon thrilled. So we're going to do this. And like I say, it's coming out probably August.
That's awesome.
So I'm super happy about that. My first foray is Ideate a Veil, which is actually being republished. This is a collection of, I call it poetry and ponderments. I wrote this in my early 20s, back in the days when independent publishing wasn't a thing. It was called Vanity Press Publishing back then. It's filled with a whole bunch of stuff that, early 20 people go into, and it's also filled with tributes to a ton of people that I've loved in my life. And I had it shelved for a really long time because I read poetry in college and decided that mine was severely Vogon poetry and I didn't want to republish it. But then a friend of mine said, Diana, it's your work and you should be proud of it. And I said, but Andy, it's poetry. And he said, but do it anyway.
Exactly.
And then my other friend, Bailey, said, come on, just do it. And I went, oh, okay, fine. So it's out there. It's just been released. And today, in fact, I'll be giving away 4 free copies for people who posted on my Facebook page. I'll be announcing that later today.
Yay.
So here's the other one. It's Wolfe Cub. Just real quick, this is my maiden name is Wolfe. My son's last name, therefore, is Wolfe because I had him before I got married. And this is just my wacky memoir on what it's like to be a single parent by choice rather than because of death or divorce. It's really a tribute to my son more than anything else. It's a gift for him. And I had a great time writing it. It was easy to write because I kept a journal from the day I found out I was pregnant until the day I wrote the book. And so I just took those journal pieces and put them together and created this really awesome book. And the book came about because Zachary came down one day when he was in high school, junior year in high school. He comes downstairs from his room. I'm making dinner. He says, "You're a really good mom." I said, "Great, what do you want?" And he said, "You're a really good mom." And I said, "Yes, and." And he said, "I want you to write it down so that when I have kids, I know how to do it right." You can't turn down a request like that. So I wrote the book and I put in a ton of pictures to embarrass him for the rest of his life. Then Free Will came along. This took me 4 years to write. It started out in a very different place and it morphed over time, and the main character, Rachel, just started speaking more and more to me about what she wanted to do. This is the story about Rachel who dies. She goes, she dies, she finds herself standing between the gates of heaven and hell. She's told that free will is a real thing, and she has to spend 7 days in a visitor's pass in each place. And after that 14 days, she has to make a decision about where she's going to spend eternity. Given that you have free will on earth, why wouldn't you have free will in death? So that's where it came from. It is a wacky, tongue-in-cheek, just ridiculous, satirical thing that I had a lot of fun with because nobody's ever done it. So I didn't want to insult anybody who was really religiously passionate, but at the same time, I kind of wanted to play with some of the messages that I'd been given religiously throughout life. So that's where that came from. And then Tryst of Fate is my romance novel. But it's a romance with a twist because there's also a mystery involved in it. It's about Thomas and Jillian, who suffer a tragic loss at the beginning of the book, because why wouldn't you? It's a romance. Because of this loss, they end up divorcing. And over the next year, Thomas, who is a writer for the Detroit Free Press, sends letters with short stories in them back to Jillian, who is an artist with the restorer department at the DEA. And each short story encapsulates a piece of their history together. And he does this as a way to win her back. Through this process, he comes to realize that there's a mystery that binds the two of them together, and he can never truly win Jillian's heart back until he first solves the mystery. So there's that. This is by far the weirdest thing I've done. This is A Duck Quacks. This is a collection of short stories. This is actually not written by me. This is actually written by Drake. He's my duck muse. Can you see him back there? That's Drake sitting on my shoulder. Drake's been with me since I wrote that first story when I was 7 years old. And he's a little imaginary duck that sits on my shoulder and quacks ideas into my head. And one day he said, I'm done playing second fiddle and I want to write a book. And I said, no, I don't think so. And then Don Levin came to me, who's also a good friend and indie author, and he said, I dare you to write a collection of short stories. So I had to say yes to Drake, and that's how it came about. So it's a collection of 13 short stories that are all weird and odd, and I'm not quite sure where they came from because they came from Drake. They didn't come from me. I just typed them. So there's that piece of weirdness.
That is one of my favorite pitches when you're in person. I like watching people kind of, they take a little step back from you when you let out that out of the bag, and then they start coming back in as you talk about it more and more. Like it's very intriguing to watch you with an audience.
Thanks. It's fun. What I discovered walking the sidewalks of book festivals is that there really aren't any other books written by ducks on tables anywhere.
That is true.
So when I mention to people that this is the only book they're going to find written by a duck, they kind of go, "What?" And then I have to echo that same what and say, "Yeah, I didn't really have a part in doing it. It was, it was all Drake. I just typed." Because, flippers and feathers on a keyboard, it's not a thing. Yeah, it's hard. Gee, no, she's got ducks. They don't type well.
No. They talk a lot, though.
Yeah, and Drake does. He talks a lot. The really fun thing about Drake is that, he's a true entity in my existence. Michael will tell you, we sit around in our writers group all the time talking about ideas Drake has given me, and he's a real entity. He's not just a name I give to my creativity. I'm just that close to schizophrenic that I have this little imaginary duck that I actually hold real conversation with. And I force my friends to acknowledge him. So there's the thing. It's weird, but.
It's totally natural for the rest of us writers. You know that.
Well, and that's the other thing is that it's so much fun because when I say that, see, I said this in a room full of writers, not one of you batted an eyelash, right? I say this to a group that I'm teaching who aren't writers, and they look at me like I have 3 heads. They're like, "Wait a minute, what do you mean you have this imaginary?" And I'm like, "Wait, you don't?" I don't understand. So
There's definitely that distinction between, because when I think the first time I had that realization was NaNoWriMo, when I was at an event with 20 other people, 20 other writers, and I said, has anyone ever been working on a plot and the characters just stop doing what you want them to do and they do their own thing, and like 20 people looked at me and go, "Yes."
Yeah. Or in Bulgaria, yes. Yeah, my favorite story about that is that, and I don't know, Michael, if you were part of the writers group at this time or if you came in later, but we were sitting around the big table at Panera doing our thing. And I'm typing away, working on this political thriller that I've been working on now for, oh my God, 5 years. It's been so hard to write a political thriller in these last few months. But I was sitting around working on this, and in the middle of writing, I stood up out of my chair and screamed, "Shit!" And everybody went, "What?" And every head turned. And I stood there and I was staring at my laptop and I said, "My main character just abdicated and moved to New Zealand, and now I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with my main character because she says she's not doing anymore and I need to find somebody else and I have no clue how to do this." And I sat back down. The people around us kind of, you could watch them like move their chairs away. And all the people at the table said, "Yeah, so who's the new main character going to be?" I mean, it didn't faze them in the least, but
Right.
all of these people who were dining, the manager came over and went, "Is everything okay here?" "Yeah, we're just having a creative moment." So I've had to control myself now in public when stuff like that happens, just because it makes people uneasy. But that happens to me. That happens to me a lot. You hear myself talking to myself out loud when I'm at the cabin writing. It happens a lot.
So you mentioned that you have a political thriller somewhere in the works. I know you also have a Western.
Yeah, I do. I do.
What else are you
I
working
do, yeah. Well, so the political thriller is something I actually started before the election for President Trump. So it was actually like 1 or 2 years before then, and I started seeing some weirdness, and I went, "What if?" And I had a thought experiment conversation with a writer friend, and then I just started furiously typing. So I'm about 65,000 words into it, And just recently, Drake brought me this really great idea of how to fix the beginning. So now I think I can roll with it and maybe get it done by the end of the year is the target. I'd like to get it done for the end of the year. Splinters is my that's American Plague. That's what it's called. Splinters is my Western, and that came out of another dare from Don Levin. He said, what's the genre that you think you have the most difficulty doing? And I said Western, and he said, okay, do that. So here I am writing Western. So that's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of research involved in that, which has been a little challenging, but I'm about 35 or 40,000 words into that one. I also have a historical novel, which tells an alternate history for the Library of Alexandria.
Oh.
Because I'm fascinated with the library. I think it's an amazing story, and being as emotionally connected to the written word as I am, and believing that it's as sacred as I do, the idea of an entire library being burnt to the ground just doesn't sit with me. So in order to appease my own emotional angst, I had to come up with another way to tell the story of where the library went. So I'm in the works. It's in outline right now, and I'm slowly adding more plot point pieces to it. I did a ton of research, but I can tell you that it takes place in the city of Alexandria, at the site where the library used to be, and the secondary location is the city of Petra in Jordan. And just as a tidbit, it takes 18 days to travel from the city of Alexandria to Petra by camel, in case you were wondering.
Good to know.
Research.
Write that down.
Things you never knew you'd need to know, you know?
I tried doing it on Google Maps, and they only give you car things or walking things. So what I actually had to do was I contacted a friend of mine who knows how to do math. And I said, okay, if it takes this long to walk, how long would it take a camel, based that a camel goes this fast? And so he did the math for me, and we came up with 18 days. So.
Okay, so that I am going to turn around on the audience and ask, what is one of the weirdest little tidbits of knowledge you have gained from your research?
Ooh, nice. Good job, Andy.
Like I will lead, so this isn't unfair to everyone else. I was researching what was at the time a young adult novel called House of 13, and I was researching little pieces of history, like things that are collector's items that are not seen very often. And I came across, like, you know, collector's coins are really popular. But I found old Roman, very interesting little coins. Bailey's laughing. She knows where this is going. That were actually, you would go in Rome, you would go and you would buy these tokens that had a number on one side, and on the other side it had a very risque picture, and it was to the brothel, and you went to a specific room and you knew what you were getting because that's what was on there.
Wow. Okay, I might have to work that into the novel.
I will give you my research on it.
Okay, good, because that's actually a cool piece. Okay. Anybody else?
I'll piggyback off of that one. That one actually made me think of one. In ancient brothels, you could also just look up what was painted on the wall, because if you couldn't read, you couldn't necessarily see, I guess, what's on the brunch menu. And so if you looked at what they'd painted on the wall, that was what you got with that individual.
Cool. I'm so glad we have words.
Yeah.
So glad we have words. Oh my gosh. Anybody else? Little weird pieces of research?
I just researched germline editing, human germline editing for DNA modification stuff for the book I'm working on now, and found out that there's a doctor who it's frowned upon about, you know, all the whole scientific community looks down on this because it's just one of those moral things you don't cross the line. And there's one doctor that actually did it, and I think some twins came out of it. So,
Wow.
and I just that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
For the book itself, obviously there's some stuff going on, but the fact that this really happened, I thought was kind of weird.
Definitely.
And a little spooky.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else?
I mostly research how to hurt people, so yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I'm also in the process of working on a suspense novel. Again, came out of a dare from a friend, and
Was it Don again?
no, this was Melissa. We were talking about writing second person, and how that's the thing that, you know, most writers probably shouldn't ever, you know, that's the standard in college. They say, don't do this.
Mhm.
Second person, it's evil, it's hard, it's difficult, it can't be done well, don't do it. And I went, that sounds like something I should write. So, and she's a college professor in Indiana, and she said, yeah, unless you really know how to do it, don't do that. And I said, okay, I'm going to do that. So I'm writing a book now. It's called Anonymous. It has 5 characters in the entire story. The entire book is written second person. And it has to do with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And so I've been investigating a lot about poisons that are difficult to detect.
Can you give us an example of how you would word a second person sentence?
It's the you. It's it's like what we do all the time when we're teaching. Stand in front of a group of students and you say, you should do this. You should think about maybe framing your stuff in this way. So it's a direct conversation with the reader, putting the reader as the subject.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
And this has been really interesting. I had to limit it to 5 characters because otherwise you're going to be getting whiplash moving from one conversation to the next. And it's going to be hard to, you know, kind of follow the flow of the story. So each chapter is a different character point of view written in second person. So it's challenged, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how you would begin something like that.
It's a lot of fun. I started with an outline, right? With a second person.
Wait, what was that word? Outline?
What is this thing?
Yeah. Being, you know, a passionate plotter, which I'm sure Andy will get to, but
Yes.
I started with this outline and said, okay, how do I want the plot points to go? What do I want the flow of the energy and the flow of the action in the story to be? And I wrote that out very third person omniscient. And then I went in and said, okay, how can I flip? And it was just like 3 or 4 sentences for each plot point. And then I went in and flipped it, said, okay, how can I now make this a second person statement? And then I just keep building each plot point I keep expanding it through second person. So it's a very meticulous process. You got to be super careful. And I'm making it even more difficult on myself because one of the victim character, you know, it's hero, victim, villain, and 2 ancillaries. The victim character in the story, who happens to be the main object of the story, the main subject of the story, is a 13-year-old boy. So I'm a person sesquipedalian in nature, and I had to learn how to move all of my big words into little 13-year-old dialogue. And that coupled with second person has been a superior challenge for me. But it's been a lot of fun. So those 3 books, Splinters, the Western, American Plague, the political thriller, and then this third book, Anonymous, the suspense thing. I'm hoping they're all going to be done by the end of the year. And then the other book, the historical fiction, like maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, because that's just intensive.
Of course. You need more research.
Yeah, it's crazy. You can't make up stuff that's real.
I know. Oh, there are readers out there who will call you on that too.
I know. I have a science fiction novel that I'm also about 45,000 words into. It's called The Last Strand. And I've given it to some beta readers and they go, no, this is not how this works. You have to go. I even have to research science fiction, which makes me, it's crazy because, you know, we have so much, now it's so pervasive in our communities. People expect certain things in science fiction. So yeah, it's not.
Well, maybe.
But that's another one that's going to be probably 2 years down the road.
Okay. I was going to say, maybe Jean could comment on this because you also write science fiction. Because I know I don't, and I don't because I have friends who read science fiction and there are arguments like you would not believe about the right and wrong to the science.
There is
fiction.
Yeah, the hard sci-fi is hard to do unless you have a degree in physics or something, you know, because you got to get all those details right. I prefer the soft sci-fi. I mean, you have the world building tropes that you need to work with, that everybody's kind of used to how things work, even though that may be not how they work. But so I do more the soft sci-fi end of things where I'm not really held to the laws of physics and all the astronomy and all that kind of stuff quite so much.
Yeah, there's a psychological component in The Last Strand. It's the basic premise of the book is what happens if you genetically breed aggression out of a society. What would that look like? So I did some research and I came on this really amazing guy in California, a psychiatrist who's actually working on what that would look like in real life. And he and I had a conversation and he allowed me to record it. And it was like 2 hours of, I just picked at his little scientific brain and went, how does this work on a cellular level? How does this work? So yeah, it's super intensive, but it's a lot of fun to play with.
Awesome.
It does sound fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. So those are 4 that are, you know, 3 coming out soon. The other 2 not so soon. And then in the meantime, I have this paranormal thing going on in my head and I have some other, I don't, Drake doesn't have a lack of story ideas. So there's always something for me to write.
Well, and somehow you have managed to keep all of this writing going and doing all of these other things that you do.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works. I
That's what I
am
was thinking.
constantly exhausted just watching you.
Well, it's what I do. It's just it's the wackiness of, I guess, my duplicitous brain. You know, I'm a Gemini, and so I'm constantly going off on tangents in all kinds of different directions simultaneously. And I still manage to get, okay, granted with the help of Ambien, but I still get the benefit of 7 hours of sleep a night. But but yes, if I didn't have the Ambien, it's a bigger challenge without. Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in with a question before we send her off on another tangent? Yes.
See, I try and make it easy. I raise my hand. Okay, if I know one of the things that, among many, that you give of to people just with no expectation of getting something back, if you could pick one piece of advice to give to an indie author to go viral, this one piece of advice, I guarantee it's going to go viral, but you can only pick one piece of advice, what would it be?
Holy moly, you would do this to me?
I would. I've been waiting for this.
No pressure.
Thanks, Kate.
You're welcome.
Specifically to indie authors.
Yep.
I think the one piece I would stress more than anything else is that if you're not going to have fun getting your book into the world, don't do it. Right? So you have to walk into it with the understanding that marketing is a huge component. And if you can't have fun with the marketing of your book, just write the book, have it printed on Amazon and stick it on your shelf and leave it alone. I've worked with a couple of authors who've actually done that. They said, you know, I just want to do it for me. I want to do it for the family as a holiday gift, whatever, because the marketing isn't fun for me. And what I do is I just say, you know, okay, then don't do it. If you can't have fun with it, this is one of those, I dated a guy, Zachary's dad actually, who when we first got together, he said, I have an occupation and I have a preoccupation. And my occupation doesn't have to be enjoyable, but if my preoccupation is not enjoyable, it's pointless to waste the energy. And that's kind of how I feel about the written word, is that if I'm not having a good time with it, I need to go find a different preoccupation. I don't ever see it as a hobby because it's so much a part of my visceral skin and bones, blood rushing through my veins kind of thing. I have a shirt that says, I write for the same reason that I breathe, because if I didn't, I would die. And for me, that's essential to who I am. But if you can't have fun doing things like these wacky Zoom things, which I didn't know how to do before we started, and if you can't have fun meeting people at festivals, if that wigs you out too much, if you don't have a good time doing reading events at bookshops or meeting readers at bookshop, don't do it. It's not worth the angst if you're not having a good time. That would be the one piece, because it should be fun. You know, I had a friend of mine who tried out for the Olympic swim team. He was my swim coach at one time. And I said, why do you get in the pool every day? He said, because it's fun. And okay, that makes sense to me. Of course, you would try to be Michael Phelps. And if you're not having a good time, you shouldn't even approach it at that level. So that's what I'm trying to do. Do I want to be an NYT bestseller? Not really. I just want to have a ton of fun doing it. And the NYT stuff is going to be ancillary. And the money would be nice, but... So it's also my biggest downfall, right? I'm not great at watching my own numbers. I'm not great at maintaining my own metrics. All the details of all of that micromanaging stuff isn't fun for me, but I'm learning the more I do it that I have to somehow find a way to make it fun, which is why I decided to do this book festival, which is why I decided to do the Zoom things, because I do love what I do and I love meeting other authors. And if that can somehow turn into a marketing assist for other people, then I should do it.
We all definitely appreciate that you do.
Well, you're so welcome. I mean, you know, for me, it's self-serving because I'm just having fun. It's kind of like, you know, taking the dog kayaking is fun. More because he has fun trying to eat the seaweed that's floating on top of the lake. But I do it. It's a self-serving thing, but he has a good time too. So, anything else?
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, then I think we need to start talking about the passionate plotter. Not that the rest of us are really going to listen. No, we're all.
I know. Thanks, Jean. I'm surrounded by weirdos. It's just
I have heard it.
the only possible advocate I might have on my side is Michael, and that's because I think he's a recovering engineer and he already has that kind of methodical approach. So I might be able to persuade him to go my direction, but you know, no guarantees. So, okay. So the passionate plotter is this wacky thing. I've been teaching writing workshops for children and adults for the last 10 years. I've been going into schools teaching 2nd through 12th grade students, and I've been going into senior centers and teaching grown-ups how to create their stories, how to get their stories on paper. There's some wacky statistic that says 87% of human beings on the planet believe they have a story in them. I think that number's higher, but those are only the people who are willing to cop to it. So what I try to do is go in and give them some kind of a foundation to launch from. If they decide to be pantsers, fine, whatever. Just do the writing part. The approach doesn't matter. But for me, I wanted to find a way to help people who kind of weren't sure. They're like, yeah, I want to do this thing, but I don't know how to start. I don't know where to start. I don't, you know. So I took all of my lecture materials, my PowerPoint presentations, all this stuff that I've had over the last 10 years, and I created this book called The Passionate Plotter. And this is this, I don't know how many pages is it? It's like 400 and something remarkable, stupid, 482 pages filled with lecture material, worksheets that you can fill out, processes that you can follow to learn about how to set up stuff. So I don't know if you can see these, I have these worksheets that you can fill out and with lecture material. And then I have lecture material pages with blank spaces at the bottom where you can take notes. I mean, it's literally 10 years of my insanity vomited onto the page in some organized fashion of reasonable intelligence. And so this is built for the 7th through adult age group. This has got all the super intense stuff. It goes into detail about how to do every piece of your book, how to plot, how to character, world building, all that stuff. I said, well, we can't leave the little kids out because the little kids are the ones I have the most fun with. So I created, this is brand new. See, it's still in beta. Zachary is editing this right now. He's doing the last final red pen edit on it. And so this is the Passionate Plotter Kids. And what I love about this is I took everything I've been doing for the last 10 years. And I, again, put all the stuff I did for kids, and I put it into this book. The fun thing about this, and I'm trying to find this page, where is it? Here it is. The fun thing is that it's all in this astounding, wonderful color. So this, what you're looking at right now, is an example of a plot map from The Three Little Pigs. And it walks you through from beginning to end the plot for The Three Little Pigs. And we talk about plot is like a drone overview. It's a drone, a plot map is a drone overview, a flyover. And then there's a space where kids can write out their own plot map, or they can draw out their own pictures. If they're not real great with words yet, they can, a lot of times art helps authors. And so I put lots of spaces for interactivity in the book. This was more fun for me than anything I think I've ever done. I talk about genre in here. I talk about the kids' version of the hero's journey, which is super fun. And so that's going to be coming out. As I say, it's in red pen right now. Zachary's got it, and it'll be out probably in the next 2 weeks. And the Passionate Plotter Adults Edition, I'm about 50% of the way finished completing the online workshop coursework for that. That is an online workshop that you can take. It's offered in 3 ways. You can do it self-paced. You can do it in a group with a whole bunch of other students and have an interactivity ability. Or you can do it one-on-one in a mentoring situation with me directly. And that's all delivered online, no matter where you are in the world, which is kind of fun. I'm working on trying to figure out a delivery system for little kids online. I'm still working on that. So this is just the adult version. It comes in 10 modules, and it's got assignments, and it's got all the stuff that the book has, plus more stuff. And so I'm offering that online. It'll be ready in September. And the online version is going to be, I'm not quite sure the price point on it yet, but I'm making it seriously affordable. And then once we're allowed to get back into meeting in groups again and living life without masks, then I'll be teaching it in the classroom again as well. So it's been super fun. And what I did go with a companion book for the little kids edition, this is also in beta, is a puzzle book for the Passionate Plotter. And this is filled with all different kinds of crossword puzzles and word searches and stuff. And it all has to do with terminology of writing books and literacy for little kids, just as a fun thing for them to do. So that's
Cool.
what I'm doing.
That's awesome.
Makes you feel any better? I would be a plotter because I'm an engineer and that's just how I think.
Awesome. Yay, we have 3
You
of us
got
now.
one.
Yay.
I just read right now. I'm not writing.
Well, I started out as a pantser, but converted over.
So you're plotting now? Good for you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, good.
it's been that way for a little bit.
Good. Yeah, so this is one of those things that I developed because a lot of people have questions. I meet people at book festivals, and one of the first things readers say is, oh my God, how did you get all that into 300 pages? Well, I sat down and I organized it. That's how I did it. So the intention of this book is that, and the online program is that it's designed in such a way that you can just delve into the parts that are important to you. So if what you really want to focus on is character, there's a whole module, not only in the book, but in the online stuff. There's just a module set aside just for character. There's just one set aside for world building. So you can do it as an entire inclusive, program, or you can just pick out the piece that you need some refinement or some education on and do it that way. So that's the intention. So like I say, the online program should be done by September. And then when I'm available to get back into the world and teach, the books are available now. So.
Nice. Is there anything we have not covered that you have on your calendar?
Can I have chocolate cake this afternoon? I think that's it.
I mean, you're an adult. You can have chocolate cake anytime you want. It doesn't have to be your birthday.
Yeah, I know. And I partake too often, but there's a particular chocolate cake. I don't know, those of you who may live in Metro Detroit, I don't know if this is a statewide thing, but there was a restaurant called Bill Knapp's at one time.
Yes.
Anyone know about this? They made the most amazing chocolate cake with chocolate. It was not a buttercream chocolate frosting. It was like an actual, somebody melted a Hershey bar chocolate frosting. And they used to give you a free cake on your birthday.
Huh?
The only place, all the Bill Knapp's restaurants have closed. The only place I can find them now is at Kroger. So I'm going to go buy one. And excuse me. I might share a piece with Dave and Zachary, but then I'm going to eat the rest of it.
And it will be well deserved.
I don't know about that, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, and this being your birthday and you being the unique person you always are, you're actually doing this differently. Usually we give you gifts, but
Yeah.
you have planned a gift for someone here today.
I have. Because I'm so grateful for all of the support you guys lend me in all of my wacky endeavors. I mean, you show up for my Zoom meetings and you show up for my wacky TV show. And when I call you and say, but I don't know how to do this, you teach me how to do it. Everybody's so kind and wonderful and supportive. So I'm going to give you guys a gift. Bailey has a name spinner thing that she's going to split her screen and show to us. And we're going to randomly draw a name from the people who are currently in the room. I'm having Bailey do it so that you know that I have zero influence in how this works. And good, Bailey, put your name in there. Good job, because you know I'd be. No, my name's not supposed to be in there. Take my name.
It's me. It's me.
Yeah. And not you,
There's
Diane.
two Dianes.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot. See? I get so confused. Okay. So this is the thing. Bailey's going to spin the wheel, and then wherever it lands, I am giving away, I don't know if you guys can see this, a free voucher to the online course. Okay. Coming out in September. And what this includes is all 10 modules of the workshop, a free copy of the Passionate Plotter workbook, 3 mini workshops with industry influencers and experts that we're going to be bringing in, an ISBN number through Pages Promotions so that you can get your book published, $150 discount on the entire editorial and design package that I offer, a guaranteed author interview on Indie Reads TV, and the great part about this prize voucher we're giving away today, because I know most of you are already published authors, you may gift this to the person of your choice if you win it. So if you know an aspiring author in your life, you know somebody who wants to check out what this workshop might be about, and you're a diehard pantser, so you're certainly not going to do it, but you know somebody else who might be interested, this is transferable to the person of your choice if you win it. And as soon as we choose the name, I will send you a Facebook message or an email, or maybe both, with how you can redeem it. So, okay, Bailey, go.
Okay. And
This tension, the tension, the
okay, but
tension.
seriously, I didn't do it.
Rigged.
Hey, Bailey won!
Where
Bailey!
it's like the thing did it randomly.
It did. That's why I love that little device, is because it does it randomly. So Bailey, I know you're an editing duck and not a writing duck, but if you would like to gift this to somebody else, it's yours to gift to whomever you like.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. You're so
I never
welcome.
did anything.
Well, you did today. You
I
won
know.
today.
Yay.
I have an announcement as well.
Yeah.
Diana, be on the lookout for a parcel coming your way, just for hosting this whole virtual festival and the fact that it's your birthday. So I'm not going to say what it is right now, but
Oh, you would do that to me? It's my birthday. I can't open it. It's not here yet. Thank
Anyway.
you very much, Troy. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's very, very kind of you. I appreciate it. Anything else, Andy, before we kind of wrap this up and go back to our lives as normal and I get out and get my chocolate cake?
I do not have anything. If anyone else wants to jump in with anything.
Anybody?
No, I
No.
think you are about 5 minutes away from a journey for cake.
That's perfect. I'll put my shoes on and then I'll go. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming in, for all your continued support. This is just awesome. I have such a great time with this community because of you, because you guys are so supportive, and every time I come up with a wacky idea, you're always like, yeah, sure, why not? Go ahead. So thank you so, so much. And we'll be back tomorrow. I believe Chelsea Gwine is on our roster for tomorrow. So come on back. All this month we're doing this craziness, and again, thank you so much for celebrating my birthday with me.
Well, thank you. Happy birthday.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you.
Thank you, Diana.
Bye, everybody.
I
Bye.
Bye.